this week we're looking at acetate again, and a slightly larger pond. I'm not going to call it a puddle, we've done puddles. This is now a pond. So the first thing we need to do, as in anything you model, is go and look at the real world. And what do ponds, puddles, whatever look like in real life? Well, this one looks quite orange. As you can see, it's had the mud disturbed up by presumably vehicles going through it. But you sometimes see that in ponds, especially if there's a current or something. So I'm going to use these colours as a basis for the pond this week. This week's tools and materials will be, you've guessed it, grout, isopropyl alcohol and water and white glue, plus acetate and actually some kind of acrylic paint to paint your acetate. I just thought I'd show you another technique for acetate puddles, and you could use it for lakes or ponds in smaller scales or puddles in larger scales. It's really up to you. And I'm trying to get that smooth, flat, milky, muddy look to the puddles. And on these ones, I don't want that. I want to see my darker colour underneath. So what I'm going to do is just do a different little section here just to show you on this piece of foam. First up, you need to start with acetate again. And this time you just need to paint the underneath. Now, it's quite a lucid colour, but I might go with a little bit natural in there as well. Yeah, probably best not to mix it on your acetate, but hey ho. So here we go, I'm just going to mix that in and paint the colour on my acetate. I want a nice smooth colour, and the important bit is not this side, it's this side. So do turn it over and you can see this needs a bit of work in mixing, and I will just carry on mixing it until I've got that as a nice uniform smooth colour. There we are, looking a lot better. So I'll just you need it to be nice and even, because that's what it's going to look like underneath on the puddle. So let's have a look at that. Oops. There we are. I've got a nice smooth colour. I'm just going to leave that to dry. Well, I painted this yesterday, it's dried, and now I'm just going to glue it in place. Good old trusty white glue. Doesn't really matter where it goes, it's not going to be visible, just a bit in the middle. Centre that up. There we go, and that will eventually, I might just put a bit more, so it looks a bit more even underneath, and that will eventually dry clear. So with this much on, it may well take a while. There we go, and as you can imagine, now it's time for my favourite stage, the grout. The trusty white glue. And this is going to be a fairly largish pond. It's just a random shape. And then what I'm going to do, because I don't want it to be too thick, I'm just going to pull this outwards so I don't end up with a real ridge. So the thin bit should be there, and I'm going to pull it out to the edge. As with every other puddle we've done, I'm just going to put it on until the grout stops looking dark, and that's a sign that we've got a dry layer on top and the stuff underneath has all been covered. If you want a thin layer, you could just put less on and it would shrink down as you do it. It would shrink down and the glue as it dried, and you wouldn't have half is deeper layer. But I quite like steep banks on mine. This is a pondy puddle, whatever scale you're looking at it on. I don't think it's really a puddle in many scales. There you go, let's just put that lump in. And it's just a case of, yet again, waiting for it to dry. Well, back for another day. Let's see how those acetate puddles did. Just tip this off, get my trusty brush out, which is a little bit too scratchy. And there we go. A small and perfectly formed, you may argue, small and perfectly formed puddle or pond. Next up, I just need to clean the water surface. Good old-fashioned cotton buds are very good for this. Just need to use a little splodge of water and go around, and you're just trying to get all the dust off. You just need to angle it to the light so you can see when it's off. Now, you could leave this at this stage, and a lot of people would, and it would look good. But my worry is it still doesn't look quite right, because the puddle edges or pond or whatever this is going to be, they're just a little bit, yeah, I think they could do with being a little bit damper, because water interacts with its environment. It doesn't just sit there. So you'd expect there to be a little bit of dampness just around the edges. So a little bit of kitchen roll here, just for the middle here. And the other reason I would always probably put another layer on is it's very easy to scratch acetate. Final layer, gloss varnish. Okay, I'm just going to leave this to level out and dry. So here we have it, the final pond, dried up and looking good. A little bit of grass or vegetation around the outside, it would look even better. And the colour's just the one that I liked in the picture. Now, I know that wasn't really a pond, but I did like the colour. I wanted to find a really funny pond joke. I googled, do you know how hard it is to Google on a Mac? They're huge, the keys. I googled, I looked, not many really good pond jokes. The best I could find is, fish swam into a wall and went, damn. Yeah, wasn't that good, was it? Ooh! Muddy, it looks like a lake. What do you say to between muddy ponds? It's not an N scale pond then, is it? I think it's a lake. But why would you have a muddy lake? It's a bit orange. I suppose it is a bit orange, but when you think about it, some ponds have streams welling up from underneath and they keep the mud disturbed. And I guess the picture she looked at was a puddle, and that just had something go through it, so the mud was disturbed. Do you think there's a stream welling up under it? No, I know it looks like the photo, but I mean, if you don't like that colour, choose a different one. It's only paint. You literally paint it brown or green or dark, whatever you fancy. Just look at the photo, paint it that colour. Oh, I'm not thought just painting it a colour. That's clever. Huh. Oh, you are clever. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week. Next week it's canals. In the meanwhile, if you're enjoying it, subscribe to me on YouTube or on my website, kathymillett.co.uk, Alternatively, like me on Facebook. See you next week.